Is bhfuil an fáilte a chur over like an Max Shaw enough. You're very welcome here tonight. This event is being organised by SIPTU and by the Belfast James Connolly Society, so you're very welcome to tonight's proceedings.
In particular, as a woman and as a socialist, I remember James Connolly, especially through his manifesto and his support of women, especially the linen slaves of Belfast. His manifesto started, "Your condition and the condition of the sweated women of all classes of labour in Belfast has recently become the subject of discussion on all the political platforms in England, and of long articles in all the most widely read newspapers and magazines. Almost unanimously, they agree in condemning the conditions under which you work, your miserable wages, the abominable system of fining which prevails, and the slaughtering speed at which you are driven." James Connolly will always be remembered by socialists, by patriots and by women for his stand for the women linen workers. And today we remember him with pride. Thank you.
So we're now going to have our main speaker, Kevin Doherty.
As a socialist and trade unionist, I want to talk to you about Connolly's politics and the legacy he left us. As was stated by the previous speaker, James Connolly is venerated as one of the greatest political thinkers, an outstanding trade unionist, a champion of the poor and women's rights, as the first Irish Labour historian and intellectual, as a journalist, as an internationalist and as a national martyr. But the core essence which motivated him through all these designations was Connolly's uncompromising belief in socialism. As was stated earlier, he was born in 1868 of Irish parents in a poverty and disease-ridden Irish ghetto out of Edinburgh. The young Connolly left school at the age of 10 and had various manual jobs before he joined the British Army at the age of 14, given a false age. It was whilst he was in the army that he visited Ireland for the first time, the country he was to make his home. Connolly returned to Edinburgh after deserting the army and engaged in socialist politics. He also kept abreast of nationalist developments in Ireland at the time. In 1896 he moved to Dublin to work for the Dublin Socialist Club. It was at this time that Connolly arguably made his most significant contribution to the Irish and international working class history, when he brought together two ideas, socialism and national independence. Connolly wrote, "The struggle for Irish freedom has two aspects. It is national and it is social. The national ideal can never be realised until Ireland stands forth before the world as a nation, free and independent. It is social and economic because no matter what form of government may be, as long as one class owns as private property the land and the instruments of labour from which mankind derive their substance, that class will always have in their power to plunder and enslave the remainder of their fellow creatures." Connolly's goal was the winning of a socialist republic, which he described as the application to agriculture and industry, to the farm, to the field, the workshop of the democratic principles of the Republican ideal. Developing on his readings of Karl Marx, Connolly later reached the conclusion that national independence was a prerequisite of socialism. However, Connolly warned, "If you remove the English army tomorrow and hoist the green flag over Dublin Castle, unless you set about the organisation of the Socialist Republic, your efforts would be in vain. England would still rule you. She would rule you through her capitalists, her landlords, financiers, and through the whole array of commercial and industrial institutions she has planted in this country, watered with the tears of our mothers and bloods of our martyrs. England will still rule you to your ruin, even while your lips offered hypocritical homage at the shrine of that freedom whose cause you betrayed." These words were an uncanny prediction of future events in the Irish Republic and are an astute analysis of neo-colonialism, the model which now blights the developing countries throughout the world. Connolly was also violently opposed to the native bourgeoisie nationalists and their representatives. He wrote, "Let us free Ireland, never mind such base carnal thoughts as concern for work and wages, healthy homes, or lives unclouded by poverty. Let us free Ireland. The rack-renting landlord, is he not also an Irishman? Wherefore should we hate him? Nay, let us not speak harshly of our brother, yea, even though he raises our rent. Let us free Ireland. The profit-grinding capitalist who robs us of 3/4 of the fruits of our labour who sucks the very marrow of our bones when we are young and then throws us out on the street like a worn-out tool when we are growing prematurely old in his service? Is he not an Irishman? Maybe a patriot? And therefore, why should we not think harshly of him? Let us free Ireland, the land that bred and bore us, and the landlord who makes us pay for permission to live upon it. Whoop it up for liberty. Let us free Ireland, says the patriot who won't touch socialism. Let us all join together and crush the brutal Saxon. Let us all join together when he and all classes and creeds, and says, the town worker, after we have crushed the Saxon and freed Ireland, what will we do? Oh, then you can go back to your slums, same as before. Whoop it up for liberty. In 1905, poverty drove Connolly and his family to America, where he became an organiser for the International Workers of the World and later the Socialist Party of America. He returned in 1910, eventually moving to Belfast as an organiser for the Irish Transport and General Workers Union, which is now SIPTU. With his family, they took up residence in the home behind us here. Connolly had 3 goals for his time in Belfast. First was to build a union. The second was to unite the different left forces behind a socialist party which supported national independence. And the third was to break the sectarian allegiances of the Belfast working class and unite them behind such a party. Liam McBrien in the City Hall today gave an excellent talk on the work of Connolly in the Belfast docks. It was in the docks of Belfast that Connolly saw an opportunity to work towards 2 of his goals, building the union and uniting the working class around common aims. In July 1911, when the cross-channel dockers, who were predominantly Protestant, were in dispute with the employers, Connolly brought the deep-sea dockers, who were predominantly Catholic, out on strike in sympathy. Connolly believed that with mutual toleration on both sides, the Protestant worker may learn that the cooperation of the Catholic who works, suffers, votes and fights alongside him is more immediate, vital to his cause and victory day by day than the cooperation of workers on the other side of the channel, and that socialists outside of Ireland are all in favour of that national independence which he rejects for the sake of a few worthless votes. And the Catholic Sinn Féiners may learn that love of freedom beats strong in the breasts of Protestant peasants and workmen who, because they have approached it from a different historical standpoint, regard the nationalist conception with suspicion or even hostility. Mobilising the working class across Belfast to raise funds for the strike broke down barriers and the dispute was won. In terms of defeating sectarianism, it was too little too late, as the Home Rule issue soon loomed large. The Unionist business class used sectarianism to ensure that the Protestant working class would have no truck with the demands of national independence. In 1913, Connolly returned to Dublin to help Larkin in the titanic and brutal struggle that was the Dublin lockout. He still returned to Belfast, but the combination of the Home Rule issue and the preparations for the coming World War meant that his attempts to win working class unity, national independence and socialism were failing. William McMullen records that when Connolly was followed home here to this house by Ben Mobbs after he tried to spread the gospel, his gospel at public meetings in the town. So it's difficult for socialists today, but it was difficult for socialists then as well. With the proposed 1914 Home Rule Bill containing the seeds of partition, Connolly made another stunning prediction. He wrote, such a scheme as that agreed to by Devlin and Redmond, the betrayal of national democracy of Ulster, would mean a carnival of reaction north and south, would set back the wheels of progress, would destroy the oncoming unity of the Irish labour movement and paralyse all advanced movements while it endured. To it, Labour should give its bitterest opposition. Against it, Labour in Ulster must fight, even to the death if death's necessary, as our fathers fought before us. Such a scheme would destroy the Labour movement by disrupting it. It would make division more intense and confusion of ideas and parties more confounded. How true this was. With the failure of the Rising and the execution of Connolly, following the ban of the Dublin capitalist class led by William Murphy, Ireland lost its most outstanding leader. He left us a valuable legacy, one which we should return to today. In the current political dispensation, it is what I refer to as the bread and butter issues, which alone can unite the working class and break down sectarianism. Connolly was careful to warn on the eve of the Rising that not a shot should be fired in Ulster. Those who have elevated physical force to a principle rather than as a tactic as Connolly saw it should learn from his words today. The Labour movement if armed by Connolly's writings, can be a tool for unity. And that goes beyond the Labour movement. The lessons that Connolly gave to us today should be looked back on, and you can see the seeds for progress from them. Thank you very much.
Come on, Tim.
The great crowd has gathered outside of the manor. Their heads all uncovered as they knelt to the ground. For inside that temple then, their brave iron soldier is lying for his country, about to lay down. Now he went to his death like a true son violin, a fiery parting he bravely would face any order rang out. Breeze and thorns and fire, James Connolly fell into a red-made grave. Now the black flag is hoisted, the cruel deed is over. One was a man who loved Ireland so well. There are many sad hearts in Dublin that morning when he murdered James Connolly, the Irish rebel. Now God curse on you, England, you cruel-hearted monster. Your deeds they shame all the devils in hell. Now there's no flowers blooming, but the shamrocks are growing on the grave of James Connolly, the Irish rebel. Well, many years have passed on since the Irish rebellion. The guns of Britannia, they loudly speak when the full light of rain, to shoulder to shoulder, and the blood from their bodies flowed down Cyprus Street. While the forecourts of Dublin, the English bombarded our spirit of freedom. They tried hard to quell, and above all the dim rose a cry of surrender, was the voice of James Connollys, the Irish rebel.
Thank you, Jared. Good night, folks. Good night.